Hello, everyone, and welcome back to In the Studio with me, Donny Carr, episode 99. Today, we will be talking about the art of layering and everything that you should consider when layering sounds together. Now, I have a current project here that I'm going to use as an example, but before we get into that, I have some quick news to share. I just participated in another remix contest hosted by Sonic Academy. This time it was for Jerem Isma and Alistair's track Fiction. My remix ended up in second place, which I was stoked on, but then I just got word that Jerem liked all three of the winning remixes, and all three of them will be released on a 3-track remix EP forthcoming on his label, G Productions. So that's very cool. Stoked on that. I will keep you posted on the release date, but I'm going to play a little snippet of the remix, a little sneak peek, and then we'll get right to it. So here you go. All right, everyone, let's get right to it. The first thing that you want to consider when layering sounds together is phase. You want to avoid phase cancellation, particularly when you're layering kicks. I'm going to be using my snare and clap layers here as an example for this video, but everything we discuss will translate to whatever it is that you're layering. So, for example, here, I have the first snare just playing in my snare clap group. And I have this snare on top of it. Now, listen to what happens when I take off the reverse polarity on this snare 2. In this case, I think it's pretty subtle, very, very subtle, but I think with the phase flipped on the snare 2, I get a little bit more bite, a little bit more power out of it. This is something that I recommend trying when you're layering sounds. Take one of the samples, flip the phase, see if it sounds better, fuller, and has more power, and then leave it. You can flip the phase right here in the sampler, or you can do it in the mixer as well. There's a little this little guy right here. Does the same exact thing. A general rule of thumb is you want both of the waveforms to be setting off in the same direction, starting its wave cycle. You can check that by zooming in on an audio waveform in the playlist, or if you're using, a sampler in MIDI like I am here, you can just right click, go to edit, zoom in on the waveform in Edison and kind of see where you're at, which is an option. But yeah, I just want to make sure that the sounds are in phase, and that's very important with kicks. So the next thing I want to talk about is timing. Now, if you're layering, let's say like a kick, for example, again, you want to make sure that they're layered right on top of each other. The waveforms are in phase with each other. You want to create one solid cohesive sound. Now, in the case of like a snare clap hybrid like I've made here, I wanted to displace the hits, displace the timing to make sure that the transients aren't on top of each other. They all have their own separate room to breathe and shine. So again, an example, let's just open this in the piano roll. My main snare here is playing right on the grid. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more. Snare 2 is playing slightly before. You can see the snare layer 3 is slightly behind it. So everything has its little bit of a space to do its thing. and that will really help when layering. Yeah, so try that out. Don't layer things right on top of each other. If you do layer things right on top of each other, say for like a clap snare example, or maybe even like synth stabs or whatever, and you have one that has a really sharp, harsh transient, and you want to layer it with another sound, maybe you can just increase the attack a little bit, or maybe put on a compressor with a really fast attack to kind of smooth out that transient, to kind of make those two play nice with each other a little bit better. So that's an option as well, if you're layering things right on top of each other. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is tuning. I definitely did some tuning action here. So the main snare is pitched up one semitone. Yeah, just tune things up and down, see where they fit best with each other. You can do it right here in, excuse me, in the piano roll by just moving things up and down, or you can do it here in the sampler by using this guy here. You can use a third-party pitching tool, whatever it is that you like to use. Doesn't matter. Okay, that's really all I have to say about tuning. I mean, this isn't a tuning video. The next thing I want to talk about is frequency. So it makes no sense to have like 3-4 sounds layered on top of each other that are occupying the same frequency band. It's just going to create muddy results. So for instance, basic example here, my kick, I have a bottom kick with all the top frequencies cut out, and a top kick layered on top of it with all the bottom frequencies cut out. And that's something that you might want to do if you're layering synths, for example. Maybe you have one that you really like the top end, just keep the top end, scoop away the bottom end. Maybe you like a piece that has a really nice mid-range, just isolate that out, and then have something that has a nice bottom end and EQ things accordingly. So that's the next. That's very important. You can have some frequency overlap, but when it starts to get too much, frequencies start to build up, and you start to get muddy, ill-defined results, and that's a no bueno. The next thing that I think is very important is to take use and utilize the stereo image. So for example here, again, I have my snare 1, and I'm just going to pull up this, let's see, snare 1. You could see here on the imager that's mono. It's playing straight down the middle. So a nice contrast to that, a nice would be something that has a lot of stereo information, like snare 2 here. That's got a lot of stereo information. The snare 1's right down the middle, so they're going to fit nicely together. They're not going to get in each other's way. And that's something to think about too, is utilizing the stereo field when layering, not just, frequency and timing. It's the stereo field as well. And the next thing to think about is, bussing everything together to create one, more solid, cohesive sound. So let's play all the layers together. I have snare 1, mono, more top end, wide, a little bit more bite, and just a little accent. These are all being sent into this one track here called Clap Group, which I've done some processing on. Just a little bit of EQ, a little bit of saturation, a teeny bit of compression, and then a touch of plate reverb. That will just kind of glue all those elements together and, help them, gel together and be more of a solid, cohesive group. And if you like the sounds that you've layered together enough, I think it's worth bouncing them out, putting them in your sample library, and then you could start creating your own, sample library of unique, hybrid layered sounds that you can use in future tracks that will be completely your own. So that is it for today. Layering in a nutshell. Hopefully you liked it. Hopefully you learned something. Leave me a comment or question, and I will catch you soon. Later.